Hi, this is episode 1 of A Chat with Charlie. Today I've got Louise Knight with me, who's going to be sharing a story regarding her son, Gabriel Farmer, who sadly took his own life last year. I'm going to hand over to Louise quite quickly because I think I'd like to start with really introducing who you are, Louise. And I think that'll be a good place to start. So tell us about you and your journey.
Well, I'm engaged now. I've got Gabriel and Lily. A single mum, looked after him all of my for the last 18 years on my own. And he was just a lovely boy. And he was, my son. Unfortunately, he came along, mental health got the better of him. And we lost him. Lost him last year.
Let's take it back. Let's talk about what it was like raising Gabriel as a little baby. Let's start with that.
He was lush. It was an easy pregnancy. He was so good. He was clever. He was bright. No, he wasn't. He could do a jigsaw in seconds. He made friends easily. He was a happy little boy, really happy little boy, and he wasn't naughty, never naughty. And then we moved over to Broadstairs when I split with his dad.
Yeah.
Me, Lily and Gabe.
How old was he? When he was 6, okay.
And he walked into St Mildred's school.
Mm-hmm.
And I now work with the teacher that had him, and she said she remembers he sort of come along and he fitted in so well and he was so popular. He then went on to Upton. He did really well there, passed his Kent test.
That's why I went on Upton.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then he got into Chatham House. And he was, we got his first dog, proper dog, really family dog, when he was that first year at Upton, who he loved, Toffee.
Interesting. Obviously, I went to Chatham House as well, and I've always found that people have got very varying opinions of what their time was like there. I mean, everyone I speak to is completely different. It's a bit like, you know what I mean? Did he enjoy it?
He did enjoy it.
He did?
He was popular.
Wow.
The school were brilliant with him.
Yeah.
And
was he strong academically?
Very.
Oh, wow.
We obviously had this incident that happened in 2016, which I believe was his demise, the beginning of the end for him.
So let's take it back. 2016. Gabriel would have been... Oh, he would have been 16, sorry.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So he was just coming up for his GCSEs, wanted to be a barrister, wanted to go into law.
Right, yeah.
And that was his sole focus, was to go to university. He was working in Tesco's as well at the weekends, which he just loved. He was popular there. And we got broken into. I went away for my birthday down to Brighton, and we got broken into. There was a prank went wrong.
Yeah.
And at 2:00 in the morning, this girl would phone her brother.
Yeah.
Her brother had got her dad and a couple of other blokes. And there was 14, 16-year-olds in my home.
Yeah.
And these blokes come through the front door. Gabriel already phoned the police. He already had a sixth sense that there was something wrong. He'd already phoned the police to say something was going to go wrong. They came through the front door. They tripped the electrics. They kicked the TV over. There was 11 of the children downstairs. They put them in the middle of the room, circled them, punched the girls, knocked their teeth out, held a knife against them.
Right.
Then this girl ran upstairs and had come round with the blokes and just said to Gabriel, "You need to hide because they're going to kill you." To which my son jumped out of the window with 2 of his friends up top window. He phoned me, and I thought he was phoning me to say happy birthday, and I tried to phone him back, and it was odd.
This is around the time of his GCSEs, is it? I'd imagine. So is he coming to the end of his sort of...
He was just going into his GCSEs. So this had happened. I'd got back on the Saturday.
Yeah.
From Brighton, and he was a mess. All my house was boarded up, police tape everywhere. It was awful. There was blood everywhere. They'd put the plant pots through my double glazed windows, and it frightened him. And then on the Monday morning, it was one of his first GCSEs. So I needed to go to the school to explain what's happened.
Of course.
And when I rocked up, they were like, oh, and then instantly the school just got the headmaster. They were amazing, sat down with her,
Right, okay.
and they were just like, you know, we've heard some reasons for why a child might need some help.
Yeah.
And then they said to me, how long's he been talking? Like he's talking monotone.
Right, okay.
And they said he's in shock. And they put him in a room on his own. But every time they said a siren would go past, you could see it.
Yeah, it's trauma. That's trauma.
So we had that. And then we got them, for them, they had to go to Crown Court. It got Crown Court, it had a jury. The three of the people got caught.
Yeah.
They got put on remand straight away.
Yeah.
And then that was terrifying because, like, we knew what happened in that house that night. But for it to be in the hands of 12 people that didn't know my son, it was like, and these other children, and he just kept saying to me, Mum, and I wasn't allowed to be in there with him because I was a witness. And these three blokes were just sort of standing up there behind the glass. Yeah. And then when it came to the, what do you call it, when they say what they're going to do, like when they charged them or whatever, it was a fray, possession of an offensive weapon, and I think aggravated, I don't know, something like that. But they thought they were coming out because they'd done 3 months on remand.
Right, I'm with you.
But the judge sent the two boys that were 18 got 18 months, and the dad got 3 years. The jury said that it was not guilty to the offensive weapon, but the judge overruled that and said he definitely had a weapon. And that experience for Gabriel, where he wanted to be a barrister, where he then realised that it was a game. Them, it's just a playground. Yeah. Who's going to win? Like, the barristers were arguing in court, and then they're shaking hands at the end. Yeah. And Gabe just said, "I can't do it, Mum. I can't stick up for people that are lying.
Could be an assistant.
I can't." And he said, "I can't."
Yeah.
So that, for what happened, broke him. Yeah. And then that changed what he wanted to do with his career. But he still managed to get a 3-star distinction in his maths. Wow. Where he was so. He got a place at university, but he was just happy in Tesco. Yeah, it was like a safe little place.
I think to give the audience some context, this incident that happened to Gabriel at 16 was the beginning of a journey with him, in terms of him trying to build himself up physically. You being a single mother, and obviously having Lily, his sister, your daughter. He kind of went into that, I guess, that fight or flight mode, I suppose, in a way. He built himself up physically.
Is your safe?
Exactly that.
Nobody should come into your home and do what they did.
And as the only man at the house, he probably had a sense of responsibility in him where he felt like he needed to take care of you and stop something like that from happening again.
And at 16, you don't look like a man. The difference between a 16 and an 18-year-old is phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
And from that, he became bulimic, which I caught at a very early stage, which we stopped. But the doctor said it's because he's trying to control what goes into his body because he can't control things around him. So then he got beaten up really badly one night. Again, I think it was something to do with that, where he was in hospital, had his head stamped all over. And then from that moment on, in his head, he needed to change his appearance. Yeah. So then came the tattoos, and then came the steroids. Yeah. Then come the addiction to the gym. Yeah. That, 3 times a week. What he ate was not. He loved food. Yeah. But he also ate it because he had to have that much food. He had to eat raw eggs.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It was an obsession.
It was all or nothing, basically.
Yeah. The tattoos were, look at my tattoos. Don't look at what's inside of me. Yeah. Read what's on the. And then the steroids messed with his head. Yeah.
I think, look, the reality is, and this is what we've talked about, right, is that a lot of men feel like this, right? I've been there. I've gone to the gym to build myself up physically in the past, not so much now, but it does come from a place of insecurity, and it's really, I find it's sad when people, I feel like, live their lives for others, not like to build yourself up to feel good in yourself and look after yourself. So I think about my uncle, for example, like he'll lose weight for an event like my brother's wedding. Yeah. And I feel like saying, well, you're never going to retain that because you're losing weight for someone else or their event. Or like when people, again, try and get sober and they're doing it for their wife or their kids, we've already learned that you have to do it for you and you have to take care of yourself. Yeah. So, yeah.
So yeah, and I think he just then nobody was ever then gonna. He wanted to have this sort of aura about him. I put like, oh God, he's a lump.
Yeah.
You know, don't start on.
Because he wants to protect you.
Yes, and himself. He doesn't. He always, and that's because he was so scared. So he never started fights. He never got into. He had a couple of silly fights.
Yeah. But
nothing serious. Nothing. He didn't go out, and he looked like. But he was just. I mean, everybody loved him. He was just so much fun. He was just.
And I think throughout this podcast, what I'll do is when we talk about maybe certain moments, we'll bring some photos in so the audience can sort of gauge Gabriel as well. So yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I think like we spoke about before as well, and this is what people need to understand, is that this is such a complex subject and there's no one thing that sent Gabriel on this unfortunate journey. But it's like, again, we've talked about the gambling, we've talked about the insecurities mentally in himself, to look after himself.
We think he had autism, just never died.
Right. Understood.
Everything had to be structured. If something went wrong, in just not having petrol in his car, he couldn't just go and put petrol in his car because that wasn't in his plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, gambling, it's just root of all evil.
Yeah.
And people don't admit to it. They don't, you know. Mental health, like what I've said to you 1,000 times, mental health is a disease. It's not a choice. And you don't, when people say I've got mental health problems, people will say, what's wrong with you? That is what's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. And it stems from gambling. It stems from childhood trauma. Yeah.
There's so many factors. This is what I think is important. There's so many different factors that all accumulate to someone's well-being, ultimately. I mean, we talked about gambling, I think it strikes a chord with me because I've been there. And from a young age, I would say that I've been exposed to gambling, maybe not directly, maybe not deliberately. I would hate to sort of point fingers at someone. I take full accountability as an adult for my actions around gambling or things I've done in the past, drinking, etc. But really, like we said, gambling is the root of all evil. It's a massive problem. And this, again, it boils down to this argument that we've been talking about, how, like, cigarette adverts are banned on the television because they kill you.
Well, like I said, Gabriel's release, he loved the gym and he loved football. He loved the Chelsea Football Club. And Chelsea Football Club have been amazing, what they've done and what they've sent us. And
agreed, yeah.
They got amazing. 23, I think Gabriel's 23, signed T-shirts and everything. But he would watch football because he loved it. So he would be found at my mum and dad's house watching football because he'd rather be there than in the pub with his friends.
And why was that, sorry?
He wasn't a big drinker. He didn't, and if he did go and drink, he went and drank big time.
Right, so he was safeguarding himself, basically.
Yeah, he wouldn't just go and have a pint or 2 pints. Yeah. He would go out to get drunk.
Yeah.
And that would be, and then he knew then he can go to the gym tomorrow.
Yeah.
He couldn't say no, so it was easy to say, I'm not coming, then I'm just coming for one.
Did he ever have that thing? I think it's like really common now. I read it the other day that like young people suffering with this more than ever is FOMO, which is like fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Do you reckon he suffered with that as well? Like
he did, but then he pulled himself inwards. He pulled himself back. And also because he'd had 3 suicide attempts previous to his fatal one, he became a liability, really, because his friends became scared that when he went out, if anything happened, if they didn't keep an eye on him,
they would feel responsible.
Yeah, and then they'd have me on the phone. Has anyone seen Gabriel? Where's Gabriel? And everybody would be like trackers on him.
Yeah.
So his friends were frightened of him being. They wanted him to be okay.
Yeah.
But they knew he wasn't.
That is such a great point because, like, I mean, the audience doesn't know this, but for people who know me, a lot of people don't know that I'm sober now.
Yeah.
And we're coming up to a year of no drinking for me, which has been the most emotional, like, journey I've ever been on. It's an ongoing journey as well.
But going back to the football, was his safe place. He's taken himself out, not avoided the pub, taken himself away from that, gone to my mum and dad's to watch the football with my mum and dad.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of that, as soon as that it goes to half time, the first thing on his telly is a gambling advert.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there, you can see him sitting there like,
itching.
And then they play gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
You can't gambling. Gambling's horrendous. And then he's taken himself away from that, but then he'll try and put a bet on.
Yeah.
And that would be, because nothing could stop that.
Yeah.
You know, you can stop yourself walking into the pub and buying a pint, but it's that easy to gamble. Even though he was banned, I got banned on everything. And you text a friend, can you put a bet on for me?
Yeah.
I'll ping you over the money.
Yeah.
It's that, you know, you can't. Everything's at the touch of a button now. You don't have time to think about what you're going to do because you've already done it.
This is the problem as well. We talked about this, and I've used examples from my personal experience. Me gambling, I gamble a lot. I've used fruit machines, and I've had really unhealthy gambling relationships, if you like. I am now teetotal from gambling, if you want to call it that. And so for the audience, if they don't know, there's something called GamStop, which is an online organisation.
Yeah.
You sign up with your name, your address, your credit card, all your debit card details, and it's a really clever system. It basically bans you from all forms of online gambling. But this is the problem, right? You could still walk into a bookie. So when I did that originally, whenever this was some time ago, I ended up having to ban myself from the bookies because for me, it was like, I'd rather the temptation just not be there. Not that I had a problem going into the bookies all the time, but it was like, when I walked past one, because I knew I wasn't allowed to gamble, it was almost like, you know, like the forbidden fruit. Like, it was like, oh, I shouldn't gamble, but like that buzz you get, like when you put on a football bet and it comes in, or you play a fruit machine. But this is the argument that we had earlier before the conversation now, is that, are they actually trying to win money? Because I've seen people put a tenner in, win like 200-300 quid jackpots, and then just put it all back in. So is it just that dopamine hit they're getting, the rush, the stupid graphics of like the fishing frenzy, the this, the that, and it's like. And it brings me back to this argument about young children with technology, iPads, phones. They're so addictive. And like watching my nephew, for example, like obviously, naturally, he's had interactions with technology, like a phone, or he sees us using them, so he has that association. But he becomes hyperactive, and it's almost too much information for them to take in, and it starts creating those addictive tendencies in children, because we all know that on social media, when you're getting likes, you get a dopamine hit. We're becoming chemically addicted to technology. And why is it now? I've noticed as well, all the fruit machines, I don't know if, not that you pay attention to, but 99% of them now, they're all these big iPads. They're like big iPad screens. They're not like the old machines with the buttons anymore. They're all like big giant iPads. And I see people like zombified staring at them for hours. And you think, and most people who don't gamble think, what on earth are they doing? Like, they're just losing their money. It makes no sense. But then when you look into the science of it, these people are becoming dependent on the hits they're getting from gambling that they're not getting in other places in their life, like their relationships, like their social life, for example. Like if you're lonely, which a lot of guys are, I've been there. Do you know what I mean? I get lonely now. But it's like, what you do to take
He would phone me up. Like when he was in Tunisia, he'd phone me up in pieces. Because you can't gamble out there, it's illegal.
So sorry, to give context, he was on holiday in Tunisia, wasn't he? Yeah.
That was 3 weeks before he died.
Right.
And he was actually sobbing to me on the phone, Mum, I just want to gamble. And he even sent me the links of the sites he was trying to get into. I'm like, Gabe, you can't, darling, you can't. You don't need. And I don't know why I remember when he was 17, he'd come in my room and he was like, Mum, I just won £1,000. I was like, I didn't think you were gambling anymore, Gabe. You know, in my stupidity, my ignorance to it, I just thought because he said he'd stopped, that it stopped.
Do you think then as well that idea, when we bring it back to that event that happened when he was 16, where he's trying to protect himself, this is the thing. I think I read it. It was like in a survey done of 1,000 men, they asked them what like the top 2 things that like gave them like low mood and anxiety and stuff like that. And one of them was financial stress and work pressure. So do you also feel like him trying to look after himself physically? Do you know what I mean? Gambling, that route to easy, quick money was a way of protecting.
It offers, doesn't it?
It does.
Exactly. Even on ITV, you know, phone up, enter this competition.
Exactly.
You're paying £2.50 to enter a competition.
Yeah.
So you're still gambling, and you can gamble, and you can phone up 10 times. You're gambling to win £250,000. Too big.
I love that example. As well. It was like the postcode lottery. Like, knock on your door. Do you know what I mean? And it's all like this, like it's all glamorized, like it's just a big joke. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure the postcode lottery isn't like some kind of evil entity, but it's just like it's just normalizing gambling behaviours, isn't it? And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a bit like this is what we've talked about. I know you agree with this, right? So, smoking cigarettes, they got rid of all the branding on all the packs of fags. But if you go and buy a bottle of drink, it's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. It reminds me of, remember the wallpaper of all different fruits in it, all that, look at it. It's like you feel like that. You walk in, and if you're someone who's tempted to drink or had a bit of a drinking problem like myself, you look at it and it's overwhelming. It's sort of like gold slip vodka, watermelons, rainbows, strawberries, Bacardi, and it's like really? And this is what I say to my mum, the root of it all is it's all booze. It was at my granddad's 80th birthday the other week, and like there was someone there, I didn't know him, but he was drinking these big Newcastle stouts. And we ended up talking about alcohol. We just come onto the conversation naturally. And he was like, come out with one of these really stereotypical responses. He went, well, I like the flavour. And I went to him, right, well, you've had about 5 cans of it so far, and I've had like 1 glass of water because I'm not really thirsty. Do you know what I mean? And I said, if they were alcohol free, would you still drink them then? And he just looked at me and he was like, no. And I was like, well, you've sort of answered your own question then. Do you know what I mean? But this is, again, where things like gambling and alcohol are so societally normalised, accepted. Everyone's doing it. When you're a kid, you watch your parents do it. Like, do you know what I mean? How many dads out there put on a football bet or on accumulator or engage in these like gambling activities? It's just everywhere.
And also, gamblers only sing when they're winning.
Exactly. That is so important.
And then so you've got somebody who's trying not to gamble. Again, that's I think another reason why he kind of took himself out of the social gatherings and going out.
And the football, everyone's betting on the enjoying the games, aren't they?
And he's making himself more and more introvert, staying in, because if he's in a pub and he hasn't put a bet on, and then somebody next to him goes, oh my God, this has just come in, I've won £500.
Yeah.
Jealousy was overwhelming. He's thinking, I could have done that. I could have done that. That would have been my money.
Yeah.
So again, it's just all the different things around him. It's too much.
Do you know what? And that is something that's not spoke about enough. 100% right. I mean, I think about all the times I've gambled in the past. Like, you're just in denial. Like, if we really sat there and added all the money I put into gambling compared to what I've got out, 99.9% of people out there are losing money.
When he was 17, he came into my room and he said, Mum, I've won £1,000, but they won't pay me out. So I said to him, I don't think you'll gamble anymore. And I contacted them and they said, oh, we're not paying him out because he's not 18. And I said, you took his money.
Yeah, so quick to do that. They always are, aren't they?
Okay, what we will do is we'll pay you out what he spent to win the £1,000. They paid him £998 back. He won £2. He thought he'd won £1,000, but he'd spent £998 to win that £1,000. He'd won £2. I was like, look, just don't get it. Because I only see I've won £1,000. Because it's all, have another go.
This is interesting. So there's a lot of American studies, which I think are interesting because they've got a high population. You could argue that in some ways they've got more data to play with. So this is interesting. So they reckon up to 20 million Americans have a gambling problem, right? 8 studies in the USA reported that those who are gambling dependent have the highest rate of suicide of any addiction disorder, with 1 in 5 gambling dependents attempting suicide. Like, I couldn't even get my head around that. Like,
gambling is shameful, isn't it? Really, the people turn their nose up at it. If you win a house on the ITV, you've gambled to win it, but that looks good. But people who put these football bets on, walk in and spend time in the bookies, and then when people fight, they're losing thousands. Blokes are losing their houses, so the wives have no idea, and it's the shame of it is unbearable. And when you've lost everything, you've got nothing left.
Yeah. And like you say, you only hear about the wins.
Yeah. Gambling is worse, I believe, than any drug addiction or alcohol addiction.
Well, this is it, though, isn't it? Because I personally believe, I wonder what the stats would be. The people who have got gambling problems, I bet you a very high percentage of those have other addiction problems with drinking or drugs.
Yeah, because I suppose Gabriel with the steroids and the gym, but
And all be interlinked, I think.
Yeah.
And especially one thing I wanted to come back to actually is that although he was undiagnosed, was he, but you felt like he might have been autistic. So my entire life, I've had people make comments say that, I think you're ADHD or thanks. But it's interesting because I think naturally if any kind of neurodiversity basically is an imbalance of like hormones or chemicals, your dopamine, your serotonin. So basically what that means, I remember reading something, they said by 2050, they think 1 in 2 children are going to be autistic. People with neurodiversity problems are more susceptible to things such as gambling, those dopamine hits, drugs, whether that's any type of drug, anything that affects anything that's psychotic, like drinking, smoking cannabis, any kind of mind-altering drugs. I feel like people who are autistic are extra susceptible because I feel like they have bigger come-downs. I feel like it affects them more mentally. And do you know what? And this is it. There is an argument, isn't there? Because some people are like, well, do you know what? I can put on one bet at the weekend and I'm all right. Why should other people who can't control themselves stop me from having fun? And it's like, I get that. But at the end of the day, what you're saying is it's a very selfish thing, because just because you're all right with it, you're okay with everybody else having a gambling problem and suffering. I think ultimately there needs to be like what it's like in other places in Europe. Like, they don't have fruit machines in pubs because they don't want you gambling in places where you can consume alcohol.
Right.
There's a risk factor tenfold. So we all know it, don't we?
Yeah.
We've had a few drinks and you're using the contactless on your card. It doesn't even feel like spending money. Me and my brother used to joke about it. I had a bank statement come through once. I stopped doing this is when I switched to digital bank statements. I had a paper statement come through, and it was like one night out. It was like you could trace my whole night out from all the local places, and it was like dun 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 dun, and like we laughed about it, but really I was like,
It's shocking.
Absolutely, because as well it's like, do you want to drink, mate? Do you want to drink that? And then you end up doing like £1,000 on a night out or something crazy like that.
I think as well with Gabriel, where he knew he's like going out on a night out, he knew how he would feel the next day, and it would stop him going to the gym. So therefore, his nights out would be 24 benders sort of thing, where he was just didn't want to go to sleep, didn't want to go to sleep because if it ends, I've got to then do tomorrow, and tomorrow's not going to be a good day. And that's, but he didn't. I mean, he stopped. He wasn't going. He cannot, like his friends all say, we didn't see him. We didn't see him enough. We should have. Yeah. But that was his choice.
Understood. I want to now go down the direction of, we've talked about some of the things that maybe Gabriel struggled with, that a lot of guys struggle with, something I've struggled with, my family have struggled with. But really I want to go down this journey of, how did Gabriel go about trying to get help? How did you go about trying to get him help? Where does that journey start?
2016, I found on his internet search, how to kill yourself.
Wow.
But I just thought, he's a bit sad at the moment. It's probably something I don't know, it's not something we all do. I've not done it. I did speak to the doctors about it because he was only 16, and we just sort of I've always just kept an eye on him. But he's never, I always know him, even when he went travelling, I had him on Snapchat tracking him around. Yeah. I knew where he was every minute of every day, pretty much. And then it was about, where are we? COVID. I mean,
where does COVID take us? So that was like a big horrible blur.
A horrible blur.
Horrible.
Took and stole 23, 24-year-olds. That, when I was 21, I was in Ibiza, I was having a lovely time. COVID didn't bother me because I had a lovely, 50, I was in my garden doing gardening. Yeah. That's not what 20-year-olds wanted to do. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I think COVID hit when he was, 19? He's come out of it at sort of 21, 22, and they've lost that 2 years of where they're supposed to be having probably the most fun.
Yeah, in your early 20s.
And then all of a sudden they've come out of it and they're, I should be getting a house. I should be settling down.
Yeah.
They're all a bit lost. They don't know how to interact anymore, and the only way they're interacting is over social media, because we weren't allowed to go out and talk to people. Yeah. The social media's blown up. TikTok's blown up. Yeah. I'm not slating social media because it's helped me. Yeah. And it's helped me help people since he's died.
Yeah, understood.
And used in the right way, social media is brilliant. Yeah. But used by somebody like Gabriel and all these youngsters that just want to be like what he is. COVID has sent social media flying because we only know they only know how to interact through that.
I think something I took from COVID that really struck me was that it all was apparently the interests of people's health, but yet it come at the detriment of so many. Yeah. And as well, it was almost like you can't go and see your mates, you can't go see your family, you can't go to the gym, but you can go to the shop and buy 2 litres of vodka, you can still pick up from the local dealer. And do you know what? The amount of stories, and these are just the people that have told me, think about the amount of people that haven't, right? That actually just locked themselves away, drunk a lot, sniffed a lot of coke, or just, you know what I mean? Just run themselves into oblivion mentally.
Many boys, but there are so many people that I've spoken to that have said to me, Louise, I'm worried about my son. He doesn't come out of his room. He hasn't got a job. How old are they? 19, 20. Because they were supposed to be coming out of school into work experience, but they've come out of school being told to sit in their rooms and do nothing for 6 months because that's okay. Whereas that's never been okay to have a 17, 18-year-old boy sitting in their room for 6 months playing on Call of Duty, But they made that acceptable.
They destroyed a generation.
Those boys don't know how to come out of their room. And, you know, their CVs, they're blank. They got, no, what were you doing for 2 weeks sitting in my room playing on Call of Duty? And you've been doing that for, you know, COVID's been over for 2 years and you're still doing it. Yeah, because I don't know how to leave that room that you put me in.
When I was a manager at the estate agents, one thing I always took, when I left school 16, I went straight into apprenticeship, full-time work, and I gained so much value from that. Do you know what I mean? Just learning how to deal with people, different generations, different genders, and just working your way through the world, basically. But when I was working in a estate agency, something I really noticed, like young kids applying for jobs and young people wanting to be an estate agent, right? But they would notice it was just two totally different kettles of fish. There would be someone who just sends an email, like, you've not called up, you've not even made the effort to, like, it's like, how disengaged are you? Like, I mean, no offence to these children, but then it's up to someone, a mentor, a parent, to maybe give them this advice and these tools, right? But then I've had it where someone's walked in the door, they've got the CV in that, and I appreciate that's not easy to do nowadays, and everyone and people are anxious, and also a lot of it's done online, and I understand that. But I tell you what, as a hiring manager, someone who walks through the door and has the ability to look you in the eyes and just say, hi, look, I haven't got any experience, but look, this is me. I really want to do this. Here's my CV. I would give them all the time in the world. In fact, I'll probably sit them down and end up talking to them for some time to gauge them. Almost give them an interview on the spot.
And
but yeah.
You know, the Jetty in Boston?
Yeah.
They put an advert out for employees or whatever.
This is a bar/cafe, by the way.
Yeah.
On the
and they actually put, we don't care what's on your CV. We don't care what experience. It was, I need to find it.
Yeah.
Basically saying, you don't need experience. You don't need to have had another job. We just need to see. And it was just so nice and refreshing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, put your CV in, you need experience. These kids have got experience.
Exactly that.
Man, how do I get it without... So...
Going back to our point, though, in terms of... Let's talk about, the NHS. Let's talk about the system. Let's about Gabriel's mental health journey in terms of the help he tried to get and maybe some of the systems he went down that were maybe advised by his GP or friends and family. We'll talk a little bit about that and about what maybe were there periods of time where something may have worked for him? Because now we talked about this chap who met him quite late on. Tom, was it Tom?
Yeah.
Somebody connected with in the
Yeah, it was too late. But it was in about 2000 and when did I lose him? 2023. At 2021, it just was getting sadder and sadder and sadder. And you know, as a parent, you just sort of think, or maybe it's a blip,
a phase.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and he was still happy, but then when he was sad, he was really sad.
Yeah.
And I just remember him sitting at the table at Christmas and looking at me going, Mum, I want to die. And I went, and my mum was going, what's he saying? And I'm like, no, it's fine, Mum, don't worry about it. And he was, I was like, okay, we'll talk about when we get in, just stop. It must have been 2000, Christmas 2021, because then it was in August. He had, you know, relationship breakdowns. I had a weird feeling, like I'd always track him, but this one day, he'd gone out to this doing Broadstairs, and I just phoned one of his friends and said, I've got a really bad feeling about Gabe.
Yeah.
Can someone take his phone and put a tracker on it? And he was very open with his phone. He'd leave it on the side. So one of his friends took his phone, put a tracker on it.
Yeah.
So then I saw that he'd left the pub.
Mm-hmm.
And I phoned him and I said, what are you up to? He said, oh, I'm going to go and meet, I can't remember the girl's name, I'm going to go and meet so-and-so. And I said, oh, yeah. And he went, oh, it's all right, Mum. I said, you're doing anything silly, are you? And he went, oh, don't be so stupid.
What was your idea of something silly?
I thought he was going to go try and kill himself because he'd spoken about it.
Oh, so you felt like he was just saying that because,
But he never, ever tried to do anything. He'd never, ever tried to take his life. And I said, you're not going to do anything silly. And he said, no, I've got to look after you and Nini. You know that, Mum. And he'd sent me a text a few days, just at the beginning of the year, just saying, Mum, oh, this was after this. It was this year. Fuck it all, Mum. This is going to be our year. I don't care about anybody else. I'm going to smash it. Like, cheers, Gabe, because you left me on my own. Anyway, so this day, I just knew that something wasn't right. And then Lily, my daughter, I said to her, Lily, we need to find him. And he'd gone down to Louise Knight. And I'd phoned the girl that he said he was meeting. She said, I don't even heard from him, Louise. So I knew he was lying to me. And my daughter got to him first, and she literally fished. He was just saying to her, I'm sorry, Lily, I'm sorry to do this. Don't turn out like me. She managed to fish the drugs that he was taking out of his mouth. By the time I got there, there was a crowd of people around him. This guy who, he asked how Gabriel was about a month after he died, and I said, he's dead, and he just... But I just sort of got to him, and they were all like, so you need to step back, and they were like, that's his mum. And what's your child? He died of that one. But they brought him back, got him to the hospital, and he was literally in one of those, they put him in one of those mental health rooms that you can't get out of. Every time I went to, so you've got a mental health nurse who monitors you for 24 hours. Every time I walked out of the room, he'd be like, Mum, where are you going, Mum? I'm just going to the toilet again. You won't be long, will you? I'm coming back. I'm coming back. In the morning, it was said, I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about mental health then because I didn't need to. And if I knew then what I know now, it could have gone a very different way. I like to think that my son's where he wants to be, but then he never had any help in getting to any other place. But they said to me in the morning, you've got 3 options. 1, we can section him, which means he'll be moved up to like Gravesend or further away.
What's that far away?
Because that's only the places that
that's just mental.
Yeah, and then they said you won't be able to see him, and his face just dropped because he was always mum, always.
Yeah.
So, he literally went, Mum, I don't want that. And I went, oh, no, you don't. And I was like, next option, we can keep him in hospital for a few weeks, but again, we'll limit access. He won't be able to have his phone or anything. No, Mum. Or they said, you can take him home under the crisis team. I was like, well, what does that mean? They'll visit you, come round and check on him all the time. I was like,
okay. Is it every day?
Yeah, it's supposed to be every day.
Did they do it every day?
No.
How often did they do it?
They came 3 times and they never came back.
Why?
Because he didn't answer the door, so they never bothered to come back again.
It's just so bizarre, isn't it? Because if someone's in crisis...
Well, if I knew then what I know now, I would have had my son sectioned and he would have been kicking and screaming, but he would have been...
What do they expect people to just open the door? Please come in.
I wasn't going to let him out of my sight. It nearly died. It died. I wanted him at home with me. I took him home and I slept down. So he slept on the floor. I made him up in bed on the floor in the lounge, and I slept on the floor with him for a week just because I just didn't want him out of my sight. Crisis team stopped coming. And then he seemed to, I just thought that was one attempt. Yes, it would have been it would have been an accidental suicide, but you get a lot of people that do kill themselves on their first suicide attempt. And then you're always going to have that, what if it was just a sort of a reaction to an action, and it wasn't, or it was not a cry for help, but a reaction to something that's happened that they got up that in that moment. So if that had happened that day, that's how I would have always, what if we could have sorted this out. And I always thought, he's doing all right, he's getting a bit better, and he's sort of then he started self-harming. You couldn't see that's left in it, his left arm through the scars, and he used to get embarrassed about it.
How old was he when he first self-harmed?
I found it when it was after his first, a couple of years, but in the last 6 months of his life, it would be 1 or 2. In the last 6 months of his life, sometimes I didn't know if to get into the hospital or not, where we'd cut so deep. I used to hide knives from him. You can only hide knives, and then he tried to jump off the cliff. One night, he had been drinking that night, and his friend was there, and I was there trying to talk him back from the cliff. But as a parent, when your child is standing on the edge of a cliff, reckoning there was a fence in between him, but when your child is literally standing there going, I'm going, the fear, I couldn't get to him even if I tried. So you're just standing there going, please, 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 please don't.
But it's not exactly small.
Oh, he's a lump. And with that, it's come back, and I thought he was coming back, and then he's run, and he's gone over the fence, and his friend caught him and pulled him back. He was going over that fence that day. I turned, dropped to the floor, and couldn't believe when I turned back round that my son was still here. That was the one. Christmas was bad. He struggled at Christmas. I know, like, because he used to go, so what, I've got to be happy today, Mum. I was like, because it's Christmas, I've got to put on a front and be happy today. And I was like, yeah, you have. You've got to do it for the family. You have got to pretend today to be happy. Can you just do that? And it would take every bit of strength out of him. And then February, he did another attempt, which was, I think, 90 paracetamol.
Was this February 2023?
Yeah. 27th of February it was. Phoned the police. Police got to him in Sandwich. There was 8 police cars around him. I got out of the car. They went, you can't go to him. I'm his mum. I can. They went, you'll make him worse. I went, I've never made him worse. I'm going to my son. And he was just there. Mum, I'm sorry. Just a mess. The police didn't wait for the ambulance. They got into the hospital really quick. I'm not going to tell you why he survived that, because that will then give knowledge to people of how to kill yourself correctly. So, do you know what I mean? What we've spoken about.
I understand that, yeah, of course.
The information Gabriel was given in hospital ended up giving him the tools to kill himself properly. If he'd carried on doing what he was doing, he would, other than going over a cliff, we could have kept saving him. But he then became knowledgeable of, this is how you do it. So that one, they kept him in hospital for 3 days on a drip in a room with a load of other patients, which was just... And the extent of the mental health that day was they came in the room, and there was 5 other patients in there with their families. And they went, oh, Gabriel, we need to have a chat. And he went, you can't help me. And the bloke went, all right, then, and walked off. And I chased this bloke. And I went, are you joking? And he went, what, he doesn't want help? And I went, you've just asked him in a room in front of other people. What did you expect him to say? But he's just said he doesn't want help. You're discharging him. What? If you read his... I need to send them all to you. If you read the history of going into it all, there's nurses arguing in QEQM that boy should never have been released, but because they weren't high enough up to give authority to keep him in, he was let out. So some people could see it, they weren't listening to him. It's in black and white.
So this incident was the end of February 2023. Yeah. Can we fast forward to this incident where he was deemed low risk? Because I think
he was only ever a medium risk.
Yeah.
On the first attempt, when they offered to section him. The February one, he was let out as a low risk. If you're let out as a low risk, you just have to wait for your mental health appointment to come through. As you know, it was 4 weeks down the line.
So just to clarify, someone who's attempted to take their own life has walked out of the system deemed as low risk.
Yeah, because they asked them in that moment, are you suicidal? The next morning, no. Right now he's not, but that's why he's in here. That's like saying, are you now, yes, but just because I haven't got a drink in my hand right now doesn't mean to say I don't want a drink.
The feelings associated this, the shame, the guilt, you know what I mean, and the idea
and said to him, judge. How do you feel about seeing your mum this sad? And I went, what? And he went, I'm ruining her life. I went, no. I want my boy to be okay. And that, again, what are you doing? And then because he dressed well, because he made eye contact, they let him out. I'm sitting there telling them, my son's going to die. That's not on the tick list. Not what parent feels, that is not on the tick list. So therefore, they've let him out into my care, given me a care pack. And that fast forwarding from the February one, we then got to May. We've tried to go over a cliff again. He got pulled back by a bloke again that time.
So it's February, May.
So April, there was another cliff attempt. That's and he was standing on the edge of the cliff again. I'm like that, guy, please. And this bloke walked past, and he's looked. He went, "You all right, mate?" And then he went, "Oh no!" And he grabbed him, and these 2 blokes pulled him back, and he was sobbing. And then he just started saying, I can't kill myself properly, Mum. I can't even do that. People now think that I'm crying wolf, which is what I don't like that expression. And people think that I'm a failure and I can't even kill myself, and people think I don't want to die. And even he's like that, what? And then in April, he was really bad, and I'd got him, calmed him down and sat him on it cut his arms really bad. And I said to him, he was on the stairs with his girlfriend at the time, and he was crying, and he said, Mum, I just want to die. And I said, I know. And he said, please, can you help me? And I said, I can't do that. So he said to him, I'll tell you what we will do. We'll arrange your funeral. So he said, okay. So he said, can I be buried? And I said, no, I'm not coming up the crematorium because you're scared at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then he said, can I have Highway to Hell as a song? And I said, no, I'm doing the music and I'm going to burn you. And so he said, I said, you cannot choose the colours. And his favourite colour was rainbow. So he was blue, and his 6 friends that carried him were the other 6 colours of the rainbow. I believe from that moment, my son knew that I knew he was going to die. Because who's it someone that sent their 23-year-old baby arrange their funeral? So then in May the 5th, 6th, I told him I was going to the cinema. So he was like, okay. And I wasn't, because I couldn't go anywhere where I couldn't have my phone on. I work in a school, but I had the Apple Watch just so I could just constantly keep an eye on him, which I don't wear anymore. And then he phoned me, and she said, Mum, Gabe's acting weird. He's all dressed up and says he's going out with Jack. I phoned Jack and he's not. So I said, okay. And he just said again, Lils, just remember, don't turn out like me. So I said, you go out, I'm coming home. By the time I got home, he was in the middle of an overdose. He was passed out. He was spitting, then he passed out. Phoned the ambulance. Ambulance got there. And he come round. Now as he come round, he got a pair of scissors stuck in his neck. And I heard I didn't see it, the paramedic screams. Then he went to jump out his bedroom window. They managed to talk him. He was such a lovable creature. They managed to talk him down, get him in the ambulance, get him to the hospital. That one, he was in. So then he was in overnight. In the morning, they took us into a room. And I said, right, Gabe, come on. And he went, oh, Mum, they can't help me. And I went, yeah, but I can't help you anymore, Gabe. I don't know what to do now. Yeah. So I said to him, if you're not going to sit and talk to these people and let them help you, I can't do this. And I walked out. And he stayed in the room. And an hour later, they came and got me. And that's when we met Tom. This Tom, he was talking to Gabe. And Gabe just clicked with him. He was
Sorry, what was Tom as well?
Mental health. He worked in the mental health at the QEQM.
Right, okay.
And then I went back in after an hour, and that's when I sat down, and that's when this lady had said, he's going to be, how do you feel about what you're doing to your mum? And I was like, whoa. And then she said, he's going to be okay. And I went, if you let my son out of this hospital, he is going to die. And she said, I have a 30-year-old son. I got him through this. We will get him through this. And I went, you won't even contact me when I leave here. Guarantee it. My son is going to die, and you're going to let him out of this hospital, and he's going to die. No, we won't. 6 days later, my son was dead. And they never contacted me that week before because they didn't have the staff, and somebody didn't send the correct email. And then that woman who told me my son was going to be okay, while I sobbed in front of her and told her he was going to die, sat at the inquest crying. Why are you crying? You let him. Oh, you're not a bad person, but you're in the wrong job. So then the following week, they let him out. I didn't let him out my sight. I'd come home from work twice. My work was absolutely amazing. They knew what was going on. If I said to them, I've got to go, they were like, go, just go. I didn't even have to say They knew.
Yeah.
And everybody watched me. I'm not going to lie. Gabriel saw what I'd become, the shell of the person that I was. And then the week they let him out, he washed all his clothes. I didn't really think anything of it. The day we lost it, he had all the carpets washed in the house, all the settees washed. The settee washed. He changed his bedclothes and he put new ones on. And he took me and his sister out for breakfast, which was even wait for Lily to get ready, which it was like, that's not Gabriel. He loved his sister dearly, but he would be like, oh, she's not ready, we just don't. And then he spent the day with his then at the time girlfriend. And then that evening, he blocked me on Twitter, which I'm not a Twitter person, so he knew I wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
And he changed it to his things, I'm sorry, I love you, and a skull at 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought every time my son was in bed that he was safe because he'd never done an overdose before in the middle of the night. So I just assumed that he was safe in bed. At 17 minutes past 3, he texted me the last text he ever said, love you. I didn't pick it up. But then he always used to call 3 mums, whether he was happy, sad or whatever. And I just said, mum, mum, mum. And I just jumped up instantly. Went in his room. And he went, you're doing that. Mum, I've done it. Oh, there's nothing in this housecape. You can't. I've done it. And he said, I have. And I said, don't write to me. He stood up, walked across the landing, and I was like, you have, haven't you? And he just dropped. He had 3 fits. I was on the phone to the ambulance, and she was like, can you move him? Like, we've seen the size of him. No. He had 3 fits, and then when I was on the phone to the ambulance, I just said to them, he's dead, because the blood just come out of his mouth. That's what he wanted. He wanted to die at home with me. He knew from every overdose he'd done before, but he took that night. Couldn't come out of his body. He knew what he was doing. He called me to his room when he knew it was too late. I got blue lighted up to the critical care team come over from Canterbury. They were all there for about 40 minutes trying to save him. I knew he was dead. My parents came round, his best friend was round. And then they blue lighted me to the hospital after him. But I was on my own up there, and they gave me a chair. I didn't sit on the chair. They gave me a bottle of water. I didn't open it. And then this nurse come out, and he did like a movie. Just took his hat off and went, Mum, and I went, and he just said, I'm sorry. We can't restart his heart. And I was like, no, not my baby. And I just went and sat with him 4 hours, and they held his hands until they took my boy away. And yeah, and I remember that morning, this Tom, who Gabe had met the previous week in the hospital, Gabe had gone to the gym on the Monday, and Gabe called him the purple t-shirt man, because that's kind of who I was. So he messaged me, Mum, purple t-shirt man, it's here. I thought it was a purple t-shirt man, Gabe. And he said, you remember Tom from the gym, from the hospital? He said, well, he said he'll give me 3 therapy if I can get in a body like mine. And I was like, brilliant. And obviously, I think they'd met up a couple of times in the gym. And Tom just come along too late. And when David died, I just saw Tom running down the corridor, and he just stood at the end of his bed, and he was like, no, not him. And it was just like, it was a ripple effect transplanet. It was like one of the biggest, nobody could believe it, least of all us, but even though I knew. So yeah, the mental health, I did nothing to help my son stay alive. 4 weeks, I sent you a voice note when he's turned round 4 days before and said he's going to have this cognitive therapy thing. It was in 4 weeks' time.
Would you really take a deep breath? Do you want to play the voice note? I think I'd like to show her I feel comfortable with it.
So I think I sent it to you, dude.
Yeah. My phone's up there. But the one that he sent to your brother.
Yeah.
Because I want to make it clear that Gabriel was actively trying to get help, and he wanted to get better.
He went to every appointment he was offered. He went to every doctor's appointment.
That's what I mean. He wasn't disengaging.
He was, and he knew that I needed him to do that.
Yeah, of course.
He would get angry before he went, and he'd get angry with me. I was like, Gabriel. But he said to me one day, Mum, I want help. I went, that's okay. Well, we can do it.
Yeah.
It was a little bit weird today. Maybe feel a bit uncomfortable on that, where I spoke to them and they put me on, they're taking me onto the beacon and stuff thing, and they're going to try to get me in all weeks, which is the latest list. They're going to call me in 2 weeks, and they give me their number to call. And continue on my medication and stuff, and hopefully things start working out.
Yeah, did they? I think that was, I said it was days before, but I think that was probably about three weeks before he died. So, yes, it was, because the beacon had him booked in to see them on the 16th of May, and he was dead on the 14th. And I phoned them up and said, we don't need the appointment. And they said, oh yeah, we can see it's been cancelled. Why is that? No, he's dead. Why am I telling the beacon that my son, you should know that my son's dead. You should have known that he had a high overdose and nearly died the week before. You should have been on the phone. If that woman had let my son out on medium risk, crisis team would have had to have been involved. Because she let him out on a low risk, he had to wait for that appointment in 9 days' time after a near-on fatal suicide attempt.
This doesn't.
So, and what is a high risk? What is he now? Because he's no risk now. But how do you die, be brought back to life, and be what?
And not be critically high risk, the highest risk possible.
Who does these? How can that not be the highest risk? I don't get it. So a low risk to me is
someone who's got thoughts about,
or standing on the edge of a cliff thinking, I want to do this, but I can't. So
that's still high risk for me.
Yeah,
I think I would say low risk is someone who's had suicidal thoughts or good.
Yeah.
I think the important thing for me, though, is the reason why we're here is that there are people out there, just like in that moment in that voice note, right, that they want help. They want to get better.
I want to be okay.
Do you know what I mean? So
what is okay?
Yeah. And do you know what? And this is why I'm here, because I felt like I couldn't get better. I knew I wanted to. And tough.
It is tough. It's you can't say to people tomorrow's another day, because in their world, it's hell here. The only way out, the only peace my son in the mental state he was in was death. It was the only peace. Telling him tomorrow was another day. No, so telling him it's going to be okay. It's like me telling you you're going to win the lottery tomorrow. It isn't.
Makes me feel sorry for my mum. That's the kind of thing tomorrow's a new day, but she doesn't know what the right thing to say is. But not,
look at you. What, you've got everything. Your mum loves you. You've got this. You've got that. You've got a nice dog. Then they're made to feel that all that does to them is make them feel ungrateful. So then they hate themselves even more because they've got all these things, but clearly it's not enough to make them happy. Yeah. So then they must be really selfish. But people don't realise what they're saying. It needs to stop. People need to be trained, or at least speak. There needs to be groups for parents that have this worry.
I listened to a Diary of a CEO episode the other day where the guy was the gender expert talking about men, and there was some kind of poll undertaken by someone who was doing a study, and they said that the two most common words that men used who are having suicidal thoughts was worthless and hopeless.
And Gabe had hopeless toad on his hand.
Louise, obviously, I really want to thank you for coming here and telling Gabe's story and your story, because I know how hard it is. And like I say, I wish this wasn't necessary, but we talk about mental health awareness and Mental Health Awareness Month. It should just be, we should know how to deal with this as a society now, because it's staring us right in the face. I think the thing that gets me is that people naturally are so cautious of what they do on their day-to-day. Like, don't step in front of a car, do you know what I mean? Don't have good traffic. The reality is, if you're under the age of 45 in the UK, the biggest worry you've got is the person staring back at you in the mirror. It's
the biggest killer of men under 45 years old.
And that's got to change. So we're going to wrap up the first half of this episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to give the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions, some burning questions, because I feel like it gives me a chance to maybe tell my story a little bit, because I feel like a lot of Gabriel struggles are things that I've struggled with, and I've managed to get through those struggles now, thank God.
Yeah.
And I think it gives people an opportunity to ask questions about how you've dealt with this, and how we can help
Others,
the other person going forward. I say,
parents,
because this is boys and girls, and this isn't just men, and men at work.
Are going through the pain of trying to save their kids.
Because where do they go? Where's the support for them? It's probably some tick box exercise or some, do you know what I mean? Or they put you on pills or something. Again, it's like, how does the system even know how to deal with this? It doesn't, does it?
No.
Because people like yourself feel let down, even afterwards. The police don't care.
Some child has taken their life during this interview. Simple as that. Somebody's going to be in my pain right now. And it's as simple as that.
I think it's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
And I think on the next episode, we need to discuss what we think needs to be challenged in the system, because I'm a part of that system now. So I work alongside a recovery team. So I'm seeing mental health problems, drug and alcohol addictions on the front line. And you can see, being in the system, where there are probably downfalls or people slipping through the net, like Gabe. And we need to stop that from happening. So thank you so much for being here today. I think next time we need an aircon unit and probably a proper box of Kleenex and not a bit of toilet roll. Yeah. So thank you so much, and thank you for sharing Gabe's story, because I feel like we keep him alive with his memory, and because of this, we are going to make a difference to the struggling person out there, and we are hopefully going to make a change to that. Because if one
save one life,
if we do one, then even if it's one, it's worth it, isn't it? So thank you, Louise, and thank you for everyone that's watching this as well. So thank you.